Good evening. Good evening. It's 6:32 p.m. Tuesday, November 14th, 2023. This is the work session of the Greenburgh Central School District Board of Education, and I'm now calling this meeting to order. If everyone could please rise the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. The first item on our agenda is B1, discussion, board goals. So the Board of Education is supposed to do annual goals in line with our strategic plan. And this year, we haven't fully started them yet, but we did discuss our board goals, I think, 2 meetings ago, and we broke them up into categories to be addressed at the committee level. So are there any committees that have worked on or looked at their section of the board goals?
Well,
Yes, Trustee Warner?
I can tell you that the Finance and Facilities Committee did look at their section in September, and we put that in our meeting minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's set for incorporation if you guys approve it. And the same thing with, before we split the Safety and Technology Committee in two, we also went over a set of goals there. So those are 2 sets of goals, and they're in the sets of minutes. And I think I've sent them to everybody. And I don't know if you want to go over them in the actual meeting or how you want to
I think
do
we
it.
need to go over them in the actual meeting to get them incorporated and then start moving that process along. Do you remember?
I mean, I happen to have a hard copy in front of me.
Do you? Give me a date on there.
Okay. The Finance and Facilities Committee minutes from September 7th.
Okay, thank you. It was 2 meetings ago.
24 school years.
I have the report here. Let me just see if I can find the
It's on
minutes.
page 6 of the report.
Meeting minutes, correction. Safety and Technology Committee. Can you maybe just go over them verbally? And then,
Sure, I can talk. Okay. So, I need to find, give me a minute, strategic goal number 2 in the back half of the objective recommendation by July 2023, install new fire hydrants on the White Woodlands Middle High School campus was the first thing that we looked at that would not fit, needed to be changed. And we wanted to change that from 2023 to 2024 because it took us that long to get through the difficulties in getting the surveys done. And the plan has been sent out to the New York State Education Department for approval, and now we're waiting. And now they're saying it takes up to 18 weeks for a project to come back. So we're saying that the best thing to do is to change the 2023 to 2024. Let's see if I can find. Does anybody object to that?
I'm trying to pull it up so I can follow along with you. I'm not sure if I can find it.
Okay. I mean, I'm this old guy, so right, so if you search for the word hydrant, okay, that will probably get you there. It's on page 15 if you've got hard copies of the strategic goals. And the column is 2022, 2023. So you're looking for something that says, by July 2023, install
Here
new
it is.
fire hydrants on
Found
the WMHS campus.
I found it.
Okay.
So, you want to move from 23 to 24,
Yes?
okay? Does anybody have a concern about that? No? Okay, the second, no?
So that guy's good?
The second one we have here is by September 2023, EPC project design will be completed. It was June, you moved it to September, right?
Correct? and that's actually done, so.
Okay, does anyone have any question or concern about that one? In January 2023, referendum to taxpayers for EPC for 10% state aid.
No
This is
change, mark this
Also
as done.
right.
So my question is, how are you marking it when you've got something done? I mean, we've got a 5-year facilities plan where we just, you know, it's incorporated in such and such plans, so we color the square purple or green or whatever, to let you know that we made progress. Or you could have a status, you know, done, you could have a status column, but somehow you should mark things. How do you want to do it for your plan?
We can create a Google Doc, maybe Misty Francesco can create a doc, and we'll drop our goals in there, and then when they're done, they're checked off as done, and if they're in progress, they're in progress.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. So that was the second thing. The third one is Phase 1 construction to begin November 2022 with completion December 2023. You have on here no change, we are on track. Beginning in December 2022, promote the participation of the community to participate in finance and facility committee meetings.
That's just a wording change, right? Instead of saying the participation to participate, you just say promote community participation at finance and facilities committee meetings.
And then you have objectives here. By December 2023, 100% of Phase 1 construction will be completed. So are we still on that?
Yeah.
Sounds good, you're nodding?
So we went over.
Wonderful. By, instead of February, we moved it to April 2024, EPC financing finalized, and construction will begin with 100% completed by December 2025. Does that sound realistic?
That still sounds realistic to me. Lisa, do you know anything I don't know?
I think the December 2025 is realistic. I don't think the financing by April 2024 is.
All right, what should we change it to?
It's all going to depend on when we get that back.
Yeah, and if it takes longer for NYSED to come back than they were guaranteeing before, this could slip out a corresponding amount.
So-
Do you want to change it to May because we're at 18
I
weeks now?
was thinking June.
June,
June to play it safe.
okay.
And so is it possible for when your committee meets to update the board, and then we can make sure to update?
Sure.
Okay. By May 2024, Phase 2 construction project designed and proposed to taxpayers for approval. That is the next voting cycle.
Phase 2 was done in October,
So we're ahead.
So
so
that's
we're ahead of ourselves.
checked, okay. September 2023, EPC project begins with 100% completion by December 2024.
And under that, I said duplicates objective 1, paragraph 2, if listed twice, because they got it in 2 different spots, right?
Okay, so is
Then
that,
it would not be April, it would be June.
right,
Okay?
is that all
And
yours?
the December 2024 would be 2025.
Right,
Yeah, it does say that.
yes. Did I say 2025? I'm sorry.
No, my changed version has 2025.
Doesn't have, yeah, this one has 24. So is that all that your committee had, finance and facilities?
That's all that my committee had, finance and
Did your
facilities.
safety and security committee have any? Or now the
Yes.
2 committees? Okay, where am I gonna find that?
The
David?
safety and technology committee had a combined set of minutes for September 14th. And it's going to be on page 2 of those minutes.
Okay. Here, I think I got these here, page 2 maybe? Yes,
And it's strategic goal
love
number
it.
2.
Number 2 again, infrastructure.
And we're looking for refined one-to-one device program strategy to address insurance and bring your own device issues. And mark objective is partially fulfilled, revise and copy to 2023-2024 column, because it didn't get done the previous year.
Huh? You lost me on that one.
All right, so there's a column for each year.
Right,
Right? So
so,
if it didn't get done in this year, it belongs over in this column.
so what, is there a goal? I feel like with finance facilities, you had a goal for a target completion date. Is there a target completion date on this one? No?
No, it's just listed under the year. There was no target completion date in the objective.
Okay.
The text on the left-hand column is exactly what,
Okay.
it's just listed. So do you want to refine it further?
I feel like, although these are different, I don't know, I feel like the other ones were saying by, and then
Yes, we had
underneath it
projects
says
with
by
end dates.
January 2023, we conduct a safety audit. I like that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's done. Usually like goals and objectives have targeted, measured amount of time.
Yes, so the fact that it is was in the 2022-2023 column before kind of meant by default that you get it done by the end of the year. And
So do we want to
that
say
did
by
not happen.
June 2024 this will happen? Because the one-to-one devices seem a little bit more urgent than June. Where are we?
Well, so where we are right now, as of the last meeting, was that the administration was pushing for us to change how we did things and not have the devices sent home at all, but keep them on carts, and there supposedly is a bunch of data that says that this is more convenient for the teachers and will have sort of higher customer satisfaction and all that, and that is not anything the board has authorized. We've not changed from a one-to-one take-home device program. So what was said at the last meeting is that by this meeting, we'll start sending the elementary school laptops home, and we'll get carrying cases for them so that they won't get broken as easily. So that's what was supposed to happen. We have a meeting later this week, at which I'll find out the answer to that.
Okay.
But I can't tell you how to change it until I've had the meeting.
Got it. Is it fair to say by January 2024?
I have no objection. What do other people think?
Okay. Next we have, we're just short on time. I don't want to-
January.
Yes. 2023 safety audit, that was done. Update district servers, migrate 85% of outdated on-premises district servers to an off-site location. This is done. 2023-24 objective recommendations. Update district servers, migrate remaining 15% to an off-site location, but there's no target date on that one either.
Again, it's by the end of a particular school year.
Okay, so June, can we put June 2024
Sure.
on that? And then install
Fine.
cellular repeaters throughout Williams Middle High School to establish a full envelope of cellular coverage across all carriers.
And you want to say by Jan.
June 2024, sounds good. Strategic goal number 4, safe and healthy climate and culture. Safety audits complete by October 2023. See, this I like when they start like this. By October 2023, district safety plan will be adopted by the board. We did that, right? By September 2023, building level safety plans will be revised. Yeah,
Yes.
good, okay. By fall 2023, identify district-wide crisis app. I think you did that, didn't you?
And we have a safety meeting this week, and they're doing a presentation at that meeting, as they did with the administrators, so we're working on that.
June 2024, district crisis app implemented. So
Yes.
that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
It'd probably be before that.
Wonderful. Anything else, trustee Warner?
That's it for me.
Wonderful. Is there any other committees that address their trustee Valley?
So in governance and policy, we briefly went over the strategic objectives that fell under, oh my goodness, the personnel one, Premier Workforce. But I want to button that up at our next committee meeting on November 27th because Dr. Iverson wasn't able to attend the meeting that we discussed this, and I definitely want to make sure we have the correct information. So we'll give that
Okay.
report in December.
So, Ms. DeFrancesco, we're going to leave board goals on our next work session, just so that we make sure to come back to this. Any other committee address any of the goals at all? No? Okay. So, moving forward, let's look at the goals through our committee structure. Maybe GovPol can resend out a list.
Yes, for what?
Thank you.
Sorry.
To the committees for them addressing the goals
Yep.
that are in the strategic plan. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda, it's now 6:47. I think we're not doing so bad. Next item on our agenda is discussion code of conduct. So, all of us were supposed to look through the code of conduct and come up with any suggestions, revisions. We have some emails from trustees over the time. This has been a several-month process. This is a pretty thick document. The policy, what is our name again? The Governance and Policy Committee decided we were gonna page by page look through it. And so we split up that task amongst trustee Along, Valen, and myself to look through it and give suggestions, and we're going to do that tonight. I believe trustee Along had the first section.
I did.
Do you want to go page by page?
Do you want to go page by
Or-
page?
Or page by, do you have the pages that you, because like the way I broke it up,
Yes.
I identified like which page.
Yes, and
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot of markups. I didn't look at this as a reader. You go ahead.
Just to let everyone know, if you have a chance to look in your packets on board docs, it's in, if you want to follow along, it's under the library in the superintendent's report from our July 7th meeting. So if you go there, you'll get the code of conduct draft.
Right, but I remember
Uh-huh.
us doing this before,
Yes,
okay.
but and then everybody was supposed to
Right,
send.
but there were some things we asked for that night, we went through, we went
Mhm.
over it.
Yeah, we asked to
Yes.
reorganize it a little
Continue to
bit.
do
Yes,
the code of conduct.
yes.
What
Because
is it,
no one,
23?
it is 2023.
Right.
Mhm. Okay, yes.
Just a question for format, since we divided it into three.
Yes.
This isn't the final version, this is just what we noticed and we want to get feedback on, correct? And do you want to divide it into 5 minutes each person to kind of?
5
at a
minutes
time?
max.
Okay.
Trustee Long's gonna tell us the page and the recommended addressing for that issue. Everyone, just listen along. If it was something that you also had an issue with, please chime in. Dr. Iverson's gonna take notes. Mr. Francesco's taking notes. Well, you take notes too, just in case anything is missing. Then Trustee Long can even share what you have there. And then the next meeting, we're going to open it for public, because it needs to be 30 days to the public, and then have a hearing, and then we'll vote on the final thing, because it's a whole, right? It has to be over.
I don't know if it needs to be 30 days, we can check with our legal
Legal?
advisor on that, but I know we want to leave it open for a substantive time to allow public feedback,
Okay.
right? We can check.
Our policies have to be 30 days, so this is not technically,
Right, so there's a little,
No.
but we
Okay.
can- we can verify that.
but maybe from one meeting to the next at least,
So
so
Carol
that.
gonna verify that before we,
Mhm.
so tonight?
After tonight, we're gonna open it.
No,
For our
Carol,
public.
is she gonna verify that tonight?
Oh, would you be able to get that tonight?
We could try.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great.
Awesome. Okay, Trustee Long, please take us.
All right, my section was the first 21 pages, I believe, which includes the introduction, the vision, mission, core beliefs, and kind of what I looked at as the foundation of the place to start, the positives in my mind, of the place to start on the code of conduct. I did not have a lot of markups in this section, but a couple of things that I thought of when I was going through is it's so very long, and the length makes me a little bit nervous. And I wondered if there wasn't a way to maybe condense the table of contents or give it subheadings so that it's not so overwhelming at the beginning. So when I said foundation, I think of the introduction, not so much the introduction, the vision, mission, core belief, the IB program, which talks about behaviors, and PBIS program, the PBIS program, which talks about positive behaviors as kind of the foundation of the good things we want to see. So I didn't know if there was a way to sub these, so foundation, responsibility in the table of contents, just to make it a little less overwhelming.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
Trustee Warren?
Okay. I agreed with you that we need to organize things a little bit differently. So I had a different idea of how to organize it. I kind of thought that you had what are people's, what are our goals, what are people's responsibilities, then how do we achieve them, how do we achieve them as programs, in which case you take all of those things that you called the good things and move them after, a little later in the document. But if you think we should put the good things up front, then that's an equally good and valid organizational scheme. But yeah, we should have also a little introductory paragraph that says how this document is organized, and just, major bullets, and then you can figure out why the topics fit in there. Go ahead.
And I actually had broken some of this stuff up into student supports. So like the Student Advisory Council, IB program, emotional support program, student rights and responsibility, positive behavior, those are all students, how I organize it as student supports. Because we talk about the code of conduct and expectation for behaviors, but then we also talk about what supports we have in place for them. But I don't know how, administratively you would organize it, but that's one of the things I was looking at as well, and I did it as a subcategory as well. Trustee Valen.
And then I'll add on in my section, I thought there was a great paragraph, page, which happens to be on page 27, prohibited student conduct. Instead of having it thrown under that order, it's actually referencing our policy 7310, 3410, the student conduct policies, but I thought that there were a set of paragraphs there that kind of set the tone. The Board of Education expects all students to conduct themselves in an appropriate and civil manner. So kind of along with what you're saying, we have our vision, our responsibilities, but here's what our purpose is for this document. I thought that section actually served as a nice introductory to the purpose of the document, rather than starting with a list of definitions.
Right. So the structure overall. Okay, sorry, Trustee.
So, definitions, thank you for that wonderful segue. Two things about the definitions, and I know we do this in our policies, but I kind of think the definitions belong further back in the documents, in the index.
Yeah.
And for ease of organization, maybe they'd be alphabetical. It bothers me that we start with disruptive students.
Can I jump in really quickly, just to let you know, in my section, I ran into definitions as well. I don't know if the way that the document is organized, and it's kind of similar to exactly how it was 13 years ago. I don't know if they try to give you definitions related to that topic, whatever that topic is, but maybe there should just be an appendix with definitions, all of them in one.
Glossary in the back of the book?
Glossary in the back of the book.
And then would you put stars next to the words that have the definitions in to point towards the bottom?
We could.
Italic.
Could footnote up, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that's all right. Sorry, go ahead.
Then within the definitions, it is mostly a layout question, and again, in the spirit of trying to reduce, there's a lot of spaces in the violent student definition between those things. I've reduced some of the spacing and bring those bullets closer together. Same with the bullying and the cyberbullying. And just a layout thing in an effort to make the document a little smaller.
Okay, anything else, Trustee Yolanda?
The next section was vision, mission, core beliefs. Page 8 of the draft. I really didn't have anything there. It follows pretty much what we said in our strategic plan. Other than, I didn't feel like the last paragraph was necessary. The last paragraph on page 9, right above the logo.
To explain the logo.
To explain the logo. I don't think we need to explain the logo. It's there. I just take that paragraph straight out.
So I would agree with you, but also there's a typo spelling, just in case. If you do leave it, just know that to change it, update that. Okay. That's above the logo, identify. I think it's just. Okay, is that it?
From that section,
From that
yeah.
section. Okay, what page?
Then to page 10. This was a question, the IB program section. I don't know why we need to explain PYP, NYP, and DP in our code of conduct.
Right, so that's why, so the organization of the, I put it under student support. I put it under student support. If we were to explain, if you guys decide to explain the IB program as a supportive educational level of rigor program for our students, then maybe we want to put it as, you know, we offer these things as well for the students.
Yeah.
But right, it's not, it doesn't necessarily have to do with,
Yeah, those middle paragraphs, the top paragraph and the bottom paragraph describe the IB program in regards to behaviors. I didn't know that the three middle paragraphs were relevant in the code of conduct.
And that's the student support, yes.
yeah, so we're over the 5 minutes. Are you almost wrapped up?
Almost.
Okay.
On page 12, the question I had there is it references first top paragraph, very last sentence. To achieve positive expectations, students are expected to demonstrate the following behaviors at all times. Could we not widen that to just say all, not just the students, but staff, everybody? I mean,
Students and staff?
yeah, I think the document references that all are held to the same code of conduct, so.
And I guess also, if the, and we keep talking about shortening things, but if the table is there, I'm not sure that the 4 bullet points need to be there as well.
Yeah, I don't love all of the visuals in between, but I don't know, like, how else it could be done. Like
Okay,
the charts
yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff.
you're right.
But,
You don't need to do it twice.
but okay,
The visuals might be the only thing some people read.
that's true. Okay, was that all for your
Yes,
Section?
that was, yes.
wonderful, okay. So we restart, trustee Valen, you want to explain your section before?
Wait.
No,
That's
not-
not.
something we missed, trustee?
Frequent,
Yes,
Page 21.
page 21, frequent. In the middle of the page, frequent communication should be frequent.
frequent, it's just a typo.
Oh,
And,
well, my section will begin on page 20.
and back on page
We
20,
didn't-
oh, you're starting on page 20, so
Yeah.
you may have it, okay, fine.
No, I didn't have that one. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Under personal technology, I think it would be good if there was a sentence that excluded our district Chromebooks or required calculators from this thing that limits technology. Because there are devices that need to be brought in and that people need to use.
So in line with that, I added, well, first of all, let's just
So-
clarify, this is a policy that both admin, legal, and then probably the technology committee will end up reviewing soon. This section, personal technology, which begins on page 20, does actually reference policy 7316, so I wouldn't mind a policy reference added there. So to address what you're saying, trustee Warner, I think I added in there, of course now I can't see
Starting
it.
the timer.
Added in an item saying, well, it does say use of personal technology, which could exclude district distributed devices, including calculators and Chromebooks. But if we wanted to be specific or explicit, maybe that'll come up as part of the official policy review, which then, of course, will get embedded in the code of conduct.
My question was whether or
Yep.
not this needs to be differentiated by level. For example, just like you said, with it being staff and students, does that need to be a differential? Does it need to be a differential with elementary school versus middle high school with regard to instructional use of technology or personal technology? But that was just a question, so I
And
don't
the
know.
other thing I'm going to say is in that paragraph is there's something needs to be added about with the exception of medical or IEP or 504 requirements.
Right.
And I would also, the sentence at the bottom, if students are found with any of these items, I'd say using any of these items, since we're allowing people to bring things to school.
Using, not with, okay. But,
And that means that in the first paragraph, we're considering getting rid of the word non-instructional time so that they're allowed to, on premises for after-school clubs, et cetera.
right, and I know we did have some trustees that wanted personal use of technology, if I say this right, personal technology to be able to be used for instruction as well, so.
So, knowing that this policy, and then a number of the ones that are on the upcoming pages are actually under review by admin and legal because there have been updates from Area 1, it might be, we'll need to discuss the timing of when we open this up for public
Okay.
comment and when we actually prove it, because I wouldn't want to approve a code of conduct
And then have
that we'll
to
just have to
change
amend when those policies filter through that
Okay.
process.
All right, what's your next suggestion?
Okay, so some of it was, well, besides the substantive issue about what we've just addressed with the levels of what technology is available. Page 22, again, policy reference to 8270. A lot of it is just copying what the policy says, so I'm not really picking on anything. Page 23 says, see the student use agreement in the appendix and policy 8270A and B, which is for students and staff. Under liability, let's see, within the school, the district reserves the right to implement procedures within the school to monitor, inspect, and confiscate personal technology during school hours when administration has reasonable suspicion. I think I was okay with that in the end. Okay, prohibition during state assessments, page 23, again, goes in line with the policy that we're about to edit. It says prohibition during state assessments. Guess what? State assessments are moving online, so we need to change that policy, and therefore this section of code of conduct to allow for use of those devices during state testing. So that will need to be edited.
But not personal, but, okay, sorry.
Well, right now, that's where I did say, so
Right.
right now it says all students are prohibited from bringing electronic devices.
At
We
all.
could add in the word from bringing personal
Personal.
electronic devices. That could be the easy fix. But I was going to defer to those various committees. Okay, page 24, academic eligibility, really references the process, okay, that references policy 7412, so we need a policy reference there. It really goes through the process for the athletic teams, but it's supposed to encompass also extracurriculars, which I suppose also means co-curriculars, so we might need to tighten up a little bit the process, but I'm also noting that there are various paragraphs that don't match our current policy, so I don't know if these paragraphs are matching a proposed athletic handbook that I do not know if we have a final version of, because I don't see it online. So there are a few paragraphs in here that we either need to consider reviewing the policy to make sure our policy and code of conduct are talking the same language, or find out what the reference is. Specifically, if we want to note the paragraphs I noticed, page 24, 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph, any student with a GPA below. That paragraph seems to be a little bit different. When we talk about winter and spring season, just below that, it says cumulative GPA of the present school year, and I think the policy currently says of the previous marking period as opposed to the whole school year. There's a few other sections down there.
Which one says marking period?
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, where it says fall season, winter and spring season. Winter and spring season currently says cumulative GPA of the present school year. I believe the policy says the GPA of the previous marking period, as opposed to cumulative.
And where would we like cash out?
She's saying make it the same.
So I'm
way.
saying, if we're going to, I think we need to refer this back to possibly administration, the
Online,
athletic
whatever
team,
it
the
is.
principals, to see what it is they're suggesting we do, what is best for
Be
the students,
consistent.
and then that becomes embedded in both the policy and the code of conduct. But because they don't match right now, I want to find out what it is we actually want to do and make it happen in both places.
And I don't know, do we suggest, like, it's appropriate to make the suggestion that it's market period instead of year?
Do you
Just-
have a opinion about it? Like a
Yeah, I'm
strong-
just saying, I would think marking period, just, let's say somebody starts off the year not so hot, and then, springtime rolls around, but they did well in the previous marking period, so they've showed the level of improvement necessary to say that they should be on the sports team, but that, if they would if things were so bad, you know what I mean, that it brings them below that cumulative for the year, I think that's something we should consider.
I would
And to
agree.
be very much transparent. We have students with disabilities that might not, have the same GPA as someone else. So are we truly following that portion of the code of conduct? And maybe it needs to be amended and really considered the whole child and not that just the grade.
Just agree, yeah.
I believe just to address that, I don't know the details, but I believe our policy does make that distinction for different students, but it's not embedded here in this.
Right.
So you're right. It needs
Because
to
the
be-
last time I looked at their code of
Flexible.
conduct, there was nothing about restorative practices in there.
Mhm.
And just trustee Thomas,
Sure, some-
just as far as
Okay,
the
so
process,
There was a
Some-
definition at the beginning.
Right, the definition,
It wasn't
but
embedded.
because when this first started, we weren't a restorative practice district. So now that we are, there should be some reflection of that in our code of conduct to show our restorative practices and what it truly means and how it's part of our vision.
Ironically enough, right before our meeting, there were 45 girls that tried out for the cheerleading team, and some of them don't have the academic eligibility and may not be able to participate, but the restorative practice is what I was thinking about, like, well, how can we help as adults? And so I'm wondering
what
with
is
all
the
of this,
reason?
right, what is the reason that it's so poor that you're not able to join a team? Is there something that can be done? Because you obviously have a desire and an interest, you don't want to squelch that, but you also need to do well in school. So what is it now that the adults can do to help you if you're not meeting the academic eligibility, right? What can we do to restore that? So it's a good point.
and just to address the other thing you brought up, trustee Thomas, we're zooming through this right now just to get kind of a first read, but there will be various points in the process where we have our say, whether it's when we actually are reviewing that policy, when it's up for discussion, or approving that policy, and then again, when we're going to come back to this once or, I imagine at least twice. So there'll be other points, but we're just doing I'm not going to outline the other places, I'm over my time. I'm not going to outline the other places where I did see a difference, but I will communicate that as necessary. On page 25, there's a section there that I think either is missing a subheading because it tends to jump right around the paragraph where it says the second to last paragraph, the importance of enforcement of all regulations should be apparent. First of all, I want that sentence to come out. Affirm and fair policy of enforcement is necessary to prevent, we could reword that to be more kind. That paragraph, though, it starts to talk about more like citizenship or conduct or behavior as opposed to academic eligibility. So I think there might be a subheading missing here.
Or it just belongs
Because
in
it
another
does,
section.
because there is a policy that kind of jumps, or there's a section in the policy that does have a subheading. And to your point, it could belong elsewhere. But it talks about when athletes are no longer able to participate due to behavior, not just academics. Okay, ID cards, let's have a reference to 6470 is the policy there, 6470, page 26. On page 27, prohibited student conduct, that's the paragraph, that's the section I thought could provide the introduction because it does reference our 3410 and 7310 student conduct umbrella policies, which the code of conduct stems from, so that would be, and then we go into what is behavior that needs to be addressed, and there's lists here. I had mentioned in a committee meeting that the lists are helpful for understanding the what, but I've also, there's another district or so that has a nice grid of once we have, that kind of ties the behavior to the possible penalties, so the nice graphic could help. Yes, I'll wrap it up right now.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just move on, so I get to 40. And that would apply mostly to page 32 where we start the penalties. So I'm not going to discuss the what on what the penalties should be. I think that's going to be a longer conversation than the time we have here. But again, I think a nice graphic would help everyone understand how the behavior links to the penalties and what penalties are applicable to certain behaviors. And I'm supposed to go through page 40. A lot of it was adding in some detailed references, which I can supply later. And I will defer to you for the next section.
Okay. Reset my timer. All right, so guys, my section started on page 41 under zero tolerance approach.
Could I
Yes?
just throw something in?
Sure.
Back on page 30, I think the list of drugs needs to be updated
Yeah.
and put fentanyl in there, at least. Thanks. On page 30,
Wait.
second bullet, possessing, consuming, selling, distributing, or exchanging.
Wait, where are you?
These here.
Oh, at the top.
There's a list
Oh,
of-
okay, the list of drugs, okay. It says possessing, consuming, selling, distributing, or exchanging alcoholic beverages or illegal substances, or being under the influence of either illegal substances include, but are not limited to, inhalants, marijuana, marijuana gummies, marijuana-related edibles, cocaine, LSD, PCP, amphetamines, methamphetamines, heroin, steroids, look-alike drugs, and any substances commonly referred to as designer drugs. And you want to put fentanyl in
I'll
there as
put
well.
fentanyl in
Okay,
there. Okay.
any other updates up until page 41? All right, guys, I'm hitting the timer. Zero tolerance approach, and I'll go line by line, my issues. Page 41, the suggestion is to,
Wait,
yes,
page 33.
page 33.
Page
sorry.
33, if any of the following occurs at any school building, administration will notify the superintendent, Greenburgh Police Department will be notified in some areas, because the Board of Education will also be informed of all incidents involving any type of weapon, all incidents involving threats to students or staff, that include weapons, ambulances called for staff or students, all incidences involving the police, all incidents involving illegal drugs or distribution, sale of prescription drugs, or possession of prescription drugs. I think the superintendent is giving us more information than that now. I think that if there's a slightly wider net of when she tells us. And I'm just curious, is there anything that needs to be added to this set of bullets?
Do we need the bullets, or can we just say serious incidents?
What's your question? You lost me, David. Trustee Warner, what are you asking?
I think that I've been getting informed if there are incidents, sometimes even if there aren't any weapons. I think that I've been getting informed if there are problems or disruptions, even if it's not one of these bulleted items. I'm wondering if there should be any more bullets.
Yes. So you want more bullets?
Yeah, to have the superintendent look and say, what do you actually do now? Right? I know you're doing at least this, you may be doing more.
Okay, add more bullets.
Yeah, okay.
Great. That's it.
Did you have a question? That's what you
Well,
did.
there's something I skipped over that I do want to point out, because I think we do need some advice on, if I may, reach lady.
Sure, I stopped.
Okay.
Page 33.
On page 39, we start to talk about minimum periods of suspension. That's an issue we need to discuss
Yes.
more, possibly at a next meeting.
Absolutely.
However, I do want to say that the heading here begins students who bring a weapon to school.
Yes.
Bringing a weapon to school, and then on the following page, it talks about firearms, and it references specific laws, and I don't know, I feel like in this particular instance, referencing this particular law, when they say weapon, they actually mean firearm and not
Were you
a heavy
reading my
bowling
first-
ball, or, huh?
You were reading my first bullet point.
No, I
Yes,
wasn't.
you were.
That's one of
Okay,
the,
look at my notes.
so that's one of the definitions.
Yeah.
Right, so a knife with a blade of more than 2 inches, 2¼ inches, is one of the definitions, and that's why it references back to the definition.
Okay,
So
reference
we
definition.
need to have legal look over certain sections as
Yes.
well. Okay.
This would be one.
Is there any more reference before page 41? Trustee Warner, moving on. Okay, page 41, zero tolerance. The first item I had was looking at weapon to school and its zero tolerance approach. They referenced the Gun-Free School Act of 1994. So my question or recommendation is from weapon to school to gun or firearm to school, because they're specifically questioning that, but we need to, I guess, check with legal if there's some other act that's involved, right? Okay, I'm putting my timer back on. And I also asked for clarification in this section, Dr. Iverson, on a fake weapon. So is there a difference between a weapon that actually could cause the harm versus a weapon that causes hysteria and concern, but actually couldn't cause a harm. And if there's a differential here, because this clearly states that a student needs to be out of school for a full calendar year if a gun, firearm is found on them. So that was my question. As well on page 41, zero tolerant harassment and bullying statement on here. I don't know where that is. I did this a while ago. I said I asked for clarification on the harassment and bullying statement of zero tolerance. Here it is. The district also has a commitment to addressing harassment and bullying, cyberbullying behavior. The district takes this seriously and will not tolerate harassment and bullying behaviors, inappropriate and offensive communication of any form, and threats to bodily harm. But it doesn't say what that means. You're not going to tolerate it, but does that mean someone's out for a year because of harassment and bullying? Are they out for a short period of time? Will an investigation be done? Like, what does that mean? There's no, like, after. Page 42, alternative instruction. It says, when a student of any age is suspended from school pursuant to law 3214, the district will take immediate steps to provide alternative means of education. I'm asking, what does that mean? What does immediate mean? And what's a timeline? Is there a timeline for out-of-school instruction? Is it, and I know we've had this conversation as an attorney. I don't want an answer right now. I'm just saying, like, for the document, put a timeline. Do we have a day to turn it around? 72 hours? What is the time period before alternative instruction could begin? Next, page 42, discipline of students with disabilities. There was a lot of comments in here. Sometimes, and I don't know if you guys found this early in the document, it says the Board of Education, and sometimes it says the district. So I'm not quite sure, because this starts off with the Board of Education recognizes it may be necessary to suspend. The board recognizes this and that, but I'm not sure if it needs to say the district or the board, kind of like throughout the document. I saw that sometimes popping up, so I don't know if that was legal reasons why it says board versus district, or if it just needs to be kind of consistent throughout. Page 42 as well, suspension or removal of a student with disabilities. That was the same board versus the board and superintendent or the district. Page 48, corporal punishments. It says in here that staff may need to use reasonable physical force to restrain or remove a student whose behavior interferes with the orderly exercise and performance of school district functions. That concerned me because I did wonder about like training for restraint and if that is something that we do here or not. But I guess my lawyer is smiling at me, so you guys will talk about that offline. School searches on page 49 had two questions. It was again the board versus the district. That needs to kind of be synonymous throughout. Also, school searches define reasonable suspicion, and is there a possibility for implicit bias and or relationship? So when you're doing a school search, is there an implicit bias where like I'm going to search you versus her? What if there is relationship involved? I know you, so I don't think I really need to search you versus her, or vice versa. I know you, so I'm going to search you because I know you as somebody who might have something on them. And there's no language regarding that. Page 50, document of searches. Is there a form or paperwork? It doesn't talk about that in there, how documenting the searches are going to be done. 52, public conduct on school property. It asks the public to be properly attired. A third of the way down on page 53, actually. It says page 52, public conduct on school property. Then I said a third of the way down, it talks about being properly attired. So I had a question about that. Who defines proper attire? So, I mean, I have an idea of proper attire, but, you know, we've talked about the kids and dress code. What about the public? And, you know, if ever that becomes a problem, does it just defer to the building leader? Does it defer to the superintendent? I'm almost done, sorry. Page 54, penalties. Oh my gosh, sorry. Yes, it talks about a staff member and it has the board phrase on determining discipline. Oh, so they talk about penalties for visitors, students, tenured faculty, talks about staff members in civil service, but then it talks about staff members not described as above. And we do have confidential staff members. So I'm wondering if there needs to be a phrasing here on, is it the board that determines discipline? Is it the superintendent recommendation to the board? Like, it's just kind of,
What's a
it
confidential?
says it'll be consistent, huh?
What's a confidential staff member?
So like, Mr. DiFrancesco is one, so there's a certain list of people on our board docs that list, confidential staff members, that are not a part of a bargaining unit. If that makes better sense. I'll show you a little bit later, on that. 3 more things. And all on page 55. So on page 55 with dissemination, what? Oh, include up-to-date language for emailing and posting. So it talks about dissemination of the review of the code of conduct. It says the Board of Education will work to ensure everyone is aware, but it doesn't say, it says, you know, we provide copies here, copies there, but it doesn't talk about like emailing and or posting the dissemination. Also change the superintendent may to the superintendent will. That's here and that's up for discussion. It says the superintendent may solicit recommendations from the district staff, teachers, administrators, basically the community on programs pertaining to the management and discipline of students. I would think you want to, and it should say superintendent will solicit recommendations from people, but that's up for discussion. And on page, and I can send you this if that'd be easier. On page 55, with dissemination, it talks about an advisory committee as well. It says the board may appoint an advisory committee to assist in reviewing the code of conduct, and I would want the advisory committee to be mandatory. That anytime we're really redoing this code of conduct to this degree, then we really should have an advisory committee, but that's as well up for discussion. That's it. So I did 8 minutes. Any other suggestions? Comments? I'll share this with you, Trustee Long and Ballin, and if you want to add your stuff in this way, maybe it might be easier to send just one
And then I'll check your notes.
document.
I got as much as I could.
I'll put you on it as well, Mr. DiFrancesco and Ivy. You want?
Yeah, oh, yes.
Okay.
She's the one who tried to.
Okay, so. All right. Any other questions, comments, concern about the code of conduct? No, so we will come back to that at the next meeting and hear from administration on some of those things. Some of those things need to go through the attorney as well, right? Okay. Next on our agenda, thank you for that. The time is now 7:25. We have policy review. I'm gonna turn this over to Trustee Ballin, our Chair of Governance and Policy.
I'm just going to note that this is a policy 7240, student records access and challenge. It's been reviewed and passed along by both administration and legal. Now this is the time for board discussion. If they have any changes they would like to make at the regular meeting next week, it will be presented to the public. The board can still add input at that time, and then it will be approved by the board. It will be subject to a vote by the board at the December regular meeting. As far as what the changes were, it's removing a lot of definitions and actually shortening the policy slightly. I think because it's moving parents' Bill of Rights elsewhere, if I remember the summary.
So I have a question in reference to the removal of the definition, which is PII, page 2 out of 6. So we, as administrators, have to take a Student Privacy Act training. And the reason for the definition, because if something comes along, you know exactly what student privacy means. So when you take away all of these definitions, someone might say, oh, I didn't know that was student privacy. You know, oh, I didn't know. So to have it, especially as board members, to understand if something actually happens, we have somewhere to actually see what we're speaking about. So I know you're trying to shorten it, but not everyone knows the difference between what is due to privacy and what isn't.
So just to be clear, these are not my edits. These are recommended to us by Erie One BOCES, and then they pass through administration and legal. You bring up a good point though, so I'm actually going to refer to our legal advisor, Carol Melnick,
So
to see
you know
if she
the
can
student
explain why
privacy
this may
training.
have been made.
So initially, when we looked at this policy, we had, added information into this, and this is Erie One BOCES taking information out because it's in another policy. So we had tried to combine the policies and were advised that, that the board wanted to be closely aligned with the Erie One BOCES policy. And so they separate the information.
So
So I
where,
believe that the reason why it's not here
I found it.
is because it's in another policy.
Right.
And in the back, the other policies are referenced.
Right.
So the same for the Parent Bill of Rights. It's not here because it's in a different policy.
And the edit specifies policy 5676, which is privacy and security for student data and teacher and principal data. And that's where the Parent
So
Bill
the
of Rights is and some of the
recommendation
definitions.
came from BOCES?
From Erie One BOCES, who we subscribe to for policy services.
So do we have 5676?
Yes, and there were no additional changes to that policy. That was a new policy as of July 6, 2021, when we put it into our
So
manual.
now, so when this policy comes out, now we're expecting someone to go to another policy to gain more information. Okay.
So
We're gonna do a
legally-
big scavenger hunt of policies.
Right, so legally, does it just make sense to be redundant? And that way it's in there, in your face,
But-
and there's no question.
If they're taking this advice from, I'd say BOCES, but you said something else?
Same,
Okay.
a BOCES, one of the BOCES.
So I mean,
if
it
there's
may
any
make,
problem with having it duplicated.
it may make sense to just have it duplicated and be redundant.
Initially, that's how it was.
How it was.
We had added it all in, and then Erie One took it all out.
Right.
Was it just for streamlining purposes?
Right, that's what I'm wondering, to save digital space?
Yeah, it might make sense to just have it.
Well, the other policy amplifies the discussion a little bit more, it looks like. But again, like you guys were
Not
saying,
gonna
there's no
hurt anybody
reason
to read
Right.
it couldn't also be here.
I agree.
It's just the other policy will get more specific when it
Yes.
comes
Oh,
to.
digging more deeper.
Right. But are you specifically referencing this first page,
Just
PII,
page two. Right,
that you'd
just
like
page
to include?
Yeah,
Is that what the
So
full
you're
board?
requesting that we
I would
keep
agree
it,
with
right?
that.
Yeah.
yeah. I
Okay,
think
fine, I'm for that.
keep it. Does anybody object to us leaving it in? No? Okay, we're
Not
leaving
gonna
it
hurt
in.
anybody.
Not gonna hurt, that's right. Doesn't hurt to be repetitive about it. That way,
Other
we'll
than
cover
that,
it. Right.
So we'll give it another review to see if what we're now retaining needs to be retained elsewhere and the other items that are stricken, stricken.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? We're gonna move on. Time is now 7:31. Reports and public comment. Committee reports. Are there any committee reports for the board this evening? Yes, trustee Long?
The Nutrition Committee
Mm-hmm.
had its first meeting on November 1st, where we confirmed our new members. They are on the agenda tonight, the additional new members for the committee, as well as Ms. O'Mealy that was approved a couple of meetings ago. And Ms. Aaron, I think your email is wrong on the emails that have gone out, so did I forwarded to your, because I got one back that said you're not monitoring that email anymore. So, I forwarded,
You know which one? Either one, you know. But the reason I raised my hand though is because, is it the nutrition committee or is it the wellness committee where the nutrition concept is embedded in the wellness committee?
that's a good question.
Okay.
I refer to it as the wellness committee.
It's
How-
wrong, yeah.
I was gonna say, however, we've been kind of going back and forth. Do we have a conflict with the Education and Wellness Committee as named? Does it
No, it's
matter?
just the education committee.
Okay, all right.
But trustee Jacobson's email should be E. Jacobson at
Yes,
Greenburgh
yes.
CSD.
We corrected to the district email, now,
Oh,
but I
okay,
think
cool.
we're going to.
I have a lot of emails,
I
I'm
got a kickback when I forwarded a slew of other emails, and I was like, oh,
Okay,
you're
cool,
not getting,
yeah.
you're not getting the goodies.
Okay,
All right, but basically, we have not finished our charges. We discussed them in length. We're going to use policy 5660 and 5661 in their current state as our guide for the committee today. The new policies are in, I believe, administration and legal review right now, so it would be ideal if we could, we know that approval of that won't happen for a couple months, but it would be ideal if we could use that. There was a portion of the meeting that had some debates about the quality of food. I'm hoping we kind of got that out of our way, because everybody kind of wants to talk about that. That's new in the committee, and you've got Aramark's ear. So our goal is not to beat up on the food, but to decide what it is we really want and how we're going to get it, because our RFP for our food service program is going to be out at the beginning of this next calendar year, so about March. Our next meeting will be November 21st at 1 o'clock in the Freelo Center.
okay, thank you. Any other committees have a report? Trustee Valen?
Governance and Policy met on November 6th. I've shared with the board the full report, which lists where we are on the policy review queue, and which the public will become aware as we present policies over the next few months, so I'm not going to read all of those. We also discussed an item on our task list regarding RFPs and how it helps the board in its governance role regarding oversight. We reviewed a little bit the policy that applies to RFPs, which is 5411, which we just amended in the spring, which changed a sentence to say, at minimum, the district shall solicit proposals for professional services every 3 to 5 years. The reason for doing that was the proposal of the auditor last year, because our transportation and food service contracts do go for longer terms, because that's most beneficial to the district. There was a discussion as to whether other professional services should also be going to 5 years, and that's a discussion that we came to a little bit of a conclusion on, but I wanted to get some feedback from the board before we did anything. Before we have that quick discussion, the RFP schedule was shared by the business office, and we determined that that is public information, so we're going to suggest that we create an item in board docs so that information is also available to the public once we have our answer on our IFP, on our length of terms. We also had a brief discussion on governance, which included ways to review large documents such as the code of conduct that we went through tonight, the need to communicate operational changes stemming from the strategic plan, and continuing the discussion on board goals before a possible winter retreat. So I'll just go back to what I said, but I should like to, if that's okay, Trustee Mayor, President Mayor's, to ask the board. When we talk about professional services and going for RFPs, it usually is that we go every 3 years, except for the 2 services which I mentioned. But because the policy is not specifying which professional services can go for as long as 5 years, there's a little bit of leeway there, and I wanted to know if we wanted specificity in the policy in case there's personnel changes, either in administration or the board.
Trustee Warner?
Okay, so, I mean, one issue comes to mind, and that's that we had a high rate of inflation recently, and sometimes you'll have a contract with a provision that says that we can only increase this contract in keeping with the rate of inflation. Whereas if you go out for a new bid, then the next wave of contracts could be significantly higher, and you might be better off with the option of keeping the old contract and just renewing it from year to year. So the question is there like a renewal clause in there when you're determining your maximum length of your contract?
Speaking very generally, first I should explain, RFP stands for Request for Proposal. It only applies to professional services, not regular vendors. Professional services such as graphic designer, our legal advisors, food service, transportation, our architects, engineers. And usually when we do request for proposals, it means we get essentially bidders, but we aren't obligated to go with the lowest responsible bidder. We go with who will also best meet our needs. And those contracts tend to be one-year contracts, renewable for up to X years. And X years is normally 3 years, but there were two categories which would be up to 5 years, and our policy didn't reflect that actuality, which is why the auditor recommended changing that.
So does anyone else not on the committee have concerns or feedback or opinion about it? I can, no? So I can share that I actually want to stick with the 3 years, taking into account what you're saying about maybe getting better bang going longer. But I looked at the fact that board members are there for 3 years, and to have something a little longer, given the board member tenure here, is to me a little concerning, because we could end up with vendors just for long periods of time that never actually get reviewed by board members.
So, are you saying that there are limitations on contract renewal? Because you can have a contract that's 1 year, or 3 years, or 5 years, it may be like 3 years. You have a contract that's for 3 years, but then you can renew it if you want. Is that okay?
But the contracts are usually one-year
1 year.
contracts, renewable for
Which
up
is
to
fine.
3 years.
And I'm fine with that
And then
too.
after 3 years,
You go for another.
you go for another RFP. I think
Okay, so you're limiting.
in my mind, a 3-year term is good to be able to review what you're looking for, what services you want to include in that RFP, what things you want to get from that company or not, if it's been working for the past 3 years. I am a little concerned if we were to go to 5 years, that sometimes things may just get kind of left over or forgotten about because it's not kind of mandated at that 3 years.
So,
That's
contracts renewable for a maximum of 3 years.
right, or we could do more. That's what
That's
discussion
the
is.
question, because right now, because the policy itself is pretty vague.
Yeah.
As the current RFPs come due for renewal, theoretically, the ones that are currently set for 3-year maximum, 1-year terms, could theoretically go to 5-year terms.
Right.
And we thought we should bring it up to see what, if all of us are no longer here, is there something we prefer set in stone in the policy?
Right.
Okay.
I'm trying to think beyond
So-
ourselves.
So my feeling is that if I have the option to terminate the contract, I'm not concerned. If I can go on and have renewals at a regular basis and go for a full 5 years, and I'm okay with that, because I had my opportunity to have a renewal or not.
That's true, I should
So
also clarify
board
that.
turns over, new people come on, they go, we're not getting the best bang for a buck from
They're
this.
stuck.
But I'm at my 1 year renewal point. Even if I can renew for up to 5 years,
Right.
I'm still at my 1 year renewal point, so I can take care of it.
No, that's what I wanted to point out.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, and the reason for the 5 is solely because we have contracts today, RFPs today that are 5 years, so we need to have our policy adjusted to compensate for those.
That's what the auditors recommend.
That's what
and
the
that's what we
auditors
did.
is saying,
So
yeah.
it's 5 years
For certain,
in general, just change the 3 to 5 years, or
for certain
3
ones.
years, certain ones 5 years.
Right.
Is the
Right.
question.
And I agree with you about the year you can always terminate. However, if you don't do a new RFP, you're not getting something else from it. So there's been times, and we know those conversations where we say, well, why wasn't this asked for? Oh, that was never a part of the original RFP. This way, the board can address it at that 3-year mark. Or
Because
not.
due to inertia, if you have a lot of new people, due to inertia, they might not know
They wouldn't have
that they
any idea.
can, they don't have to wait out the full 3 years. That's planning for
When you're not here, that's
all
what I'm
newbies
thinking
to
of.
be
Right.
here.
Right, I agree with 3 years.
So,
Okay, so let's go around. Three for everyone, or 3, or 3 with 5 for those 2
5 being the exception, I think has to.
from the auditors. Am I saying that right? No.
3 for everyone but the exceptions is what you mean.
Right.
the food service and transportation.
5 years for, up to 5 years for everyone, or 3 with exceptions for food and transportation only.
My philosophy on this is that we shouldn't specify the exceptions, but we should say that 5 years is an exceptional. So 3 years,
So your vote is 5 years.
3 years with a relative few exceptions that are acceptable to 5 years, without specifying what those exceptions are, yes.
So 5 years, and then we'll
It
work out
shouldn't
the
be the
wording.
standard, 5 years.
We'll work
yes.
out the wording.
Yeah.
Okay, so 5 years, yes.
I can't say 2 years.
You can. It's 3 years
The food
with
service
exceptions
is
or
5
5 years.
3 years.
Okay. Trustee Warner.
5 years.
Trustee, who am I? Valen.
3.
Trustee Washington.
3.
And Jacobson.
With the exception of the 5.
Nope, 3 or 5, and we'll work out the wording
3.
later. 3, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so 3 years it will be for now, and then we'll go with what the auditors recommend for food and transportation. Okay. Anything else in your report?
Not for governance.
Okay, 7:43. Is there any other reports to the board tonight? Yeah, yes.
I was just gonna say that the CSD is, the next meeting is on November the 28th at 7 PM. It'll be via Zoom, and the Zoom to the list, it will be going out. If anybody else needs to be added to that list, they can email me at jthomas@greenburghcsd.org.
Any other committee reports? Thank you. Hearing none, we're going to move on to Trustee Warner.
Sure.
I'm putting my timer on.
I should tell you that the Technology Committee is scheduled to meet at, I guess, the Thursday, 11/16 at 1 PM. And the Safety Committee is scheduled to meet at 11/16 at 5:15 PM. And then the Finance and Facilities Committee will meet on December 21st at 6:30 PM in the Innovation Lab, which is right here. And I have a Finance and Facilities Committee report. The Finance and Facilities Committee met on 11/9/23 in the Woodlands Middle High School Innovation Lab and via Zoom at 6:30 PM. Attendees included David Warner, Chris Fallon, Steve Morton, Dennis Pugliese, Amy Ashley Moore, Lisa Raymond, Luke Johnson, Jessica Muldoon, Katie McGee, Dr. Linda Iverson, Michael Messina, Fred Seba, Dr. Carol Allen, Walter Simon, Tracy Maris, and Megan Hock. We introduced ourselves, discussed committee membership, and adopted minutes of the 10/5 FinFac meeting. We reviewed the recently passed Phase 2 bond and discussed our efforts to inform the public and how they could be further improved in future projects. Michael Messina of BBS Architects reviewed the status of major facilities projects. We are preparing a request for proposal for construction management services for our upcoming projects. Funding is included in those projects. We have several projects, and the funding will come from the various projects. The Woodland Security Vestibule construction has started, as you've seen out front. The administration building roof project and Phase 1 work at ECP, Leo Jackson, Highview, RJ Bailey, and Woodlands are down to punch list work and should be done by the end of November. NYSCD has approved the RJ Bailey auditorium renovations, and we're waiting on roof approval. The shingle roof was submitted in August, and the flat roof is awaiting district signature following the Phase 2 approval. There's a long queue of construction projects statewide, and it may take up to 4.5 months to obtain approval. In the event that the shingle roof approval comes in and the flat roof is not near approval, we should consider going ahead with the shingle roof and auditorium construction projects rather than wait for the flat roof. The energy performance contract, Woodlands Fire Hydrant Project, and the Highview window replacement projects have been submitted to NYSCD for approval. We have grant funding for Woodlands High School Science Lab, Lab 314 gas service reconstruction, and pre-design work is underway. The grade level reconfiguration proposal may be put on hold. The latest Beds Day enrollment report indicated our recent enrollment increase trend has topped out. So we were like within 1 person of enrollment last year. However, there is an issue with subcategories of the report data, which calls the data into question. Administration is checking to confirm and correct enrollment data as needed. Facilities Director Dennis Pugliese reviewed pictures and descriptions of facilities maintenance and upgrade activities for the month. Air intake in the back of the ECP main building has been raised 3 inches at no cost to the district. This will prevent recurrence of flooding in the event of more heavy rains. On 10/20, the ECP boiler pressure relief valve tripped and the steam compromised the classroom ceiling. The ceiling was removed and replaced, and the pipes and furnace have been serviced to prevent this from happening again. At Leo Jackson, new LED lights have been installed on light poles and on the front of the building. At Highview, a hot water circulator pump for the front wing was serviced. Evaluation to prevent repeated flooding will be incorporated into the Phase 2 project. At RJ Bailey, one boiler requires new tubes. Parts are on order, and we're functioning with the second boiler only at this point. Sidewalk and steps at the north end of Bailey have been pressure washed and repointed. Sidewalk to nowhere has been removed. At Woodland, sewer ejector pumps in both the boiler room have been replaced. Lights on a light pole have been replaced with dual LED lights. Item 4 has been spread on the football field driveway to fill in potholes. We can repave the road in the spring if the budget allows and the board approves. Okay. There was a suggestion that we pave it as a 2-lane driveway instead of the way it is now, where you've got 1 lane that's paved and a sort of a bunch of gravel on the side. We're also cutting back trees on the campus. Punch list work on the mansion includes fabricating some rain gutters and completing new skylights. It's just about done. New LED parking lot lights were installed at the bus garage. State requirements to migrate student transportation to electric buses should be funded by the state. Many districts agree and are requesting that future New York State budgets cover this process. In this case, state funding could be used to study migration costs and implement a pilot electric bus program. So we're not requesting that you fund a local request at this time. Assistant Superintendent for Business Lisa Raymond reviewed the BOE services we currently use, reviewed funding status of $500K from Abernathy, the RJ Bailey Auditorium, another $500K from Senator Cousins for the track, and $174,000 through Mary Jane Shimsky for iWash stations and gas service in 1 science lab. We have a request from staff for improvements in the soccer field. We have $5.9 million in capital reserves for future facilities projects. We discussed our next construction project. We're going to call it Phase 3. Background information has been provided in our 5-year facilities plan and other documents from BBS and our administration. Committee members will be polled in upcoming meetings to determine what projects should be included, when the project should begin, and how much risk we're willing to accept. BBS will provide updated cost estimates on our favorite options and will vote on a recommendation to the board. Dr. Carol Allen provided an update on the Edgemont Village Incorporation issue. Efforts continue to have a revised version of New York State Bill S7537 signed by the governor. The request is to remove provisions which effectively exclude existing petitions for Edgemont Incorporation from the reform provisions of the bill. The meeting adjourned at 8:50 p.m. The next meeting of the Finance and Facilities Committee is December 21st at 6:30 p.m. in the Woodlands Innovation Lab.
Thank you, Trustee Warner. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Trustee Jacobson?
Just that the tech committee is happening during the middle of Parent Involvement Day, which is
Okay.
Thursday, and so there's things happening in the schools during the day, including a parent coffee at noon at Highview.
Would you like to reschedule the meeting?
Preferably, yes.
Okay, can you
If
send me
possible.
some dates that you would like?
That I can.
And I'll talk to David Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns, FinPAC? Hearing none, we're gonna end that. Any other committee reports? No, it's now, the time is now 7:50 p.m. We have a hard stop for 8 p.m. because we have several guests that have been patiently waiting. We have a board president's report I'm going to table. We have superintendent's report, Dr. Iverson.
Yes, and I don't have but a very little to say. Good evening, everyone. I just want to just bring to the attention of the public, the schools being off last Tuesday for Election Day. All of our staff participated in Superintendent Conference Day, and we had a very glorious day, engaged in a lot of high-level, I think, professional development. Several important topics, including that are updated in our strategic plan were discussed, including our initiative around DEI. We're beginning to work on that initiative, and you should hear more about that very shortly. Faculty and staff also had the opportunity to participate in an hour-long period of social and emotional well-being, choosing from activities such as art, volleyball, and mediation. And as a district, we just reflect on this all the time, the importance of SEL for our students. And this year, we are making sure we not forget our adults who are in the trenches doing the work, to give them time to decompress and connect with one another and themselves. So from the looks that I saw, everyone was having a great time. As I said, we are going to be slowly introducing our initiative around DEI. We're looking forward to this important step, but we want to be clear that this is not the first time we have focused on DEI. DEI is throughout our strategic plan, was developed through the lens of the New York State Culturally Responsible Sustaining Framework. And so this is the next leg of that work, and this effort is about adding another important like I said, layer to our work. Yesterday, I held my second SAC, Superintendent Student Advisory Council meeting with my 20 students in grades 5 through 12. Great group of students. We're working on team building and developing trust, as well as honestly having to share their ideas. We are now honing on a few topics and projects they want to take on, including many around climate and culture, bullying, interests that they have shared from their voice from peers in their various buildings. They understand that this is an advisory council. They understand as well we're not going to be able to focus on all ideas and requests, but you stay tuned for more information on where we're going with that. We're looking to identify 2 or 3 projects that they will be a voice for all students in the district. Thank you.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, that was good.
Yeah.
Superintendent for Business report?
Thank you, trustee Mears. I just have the treasurer's report for the month of September. We began the month with $24,742,762 and deposited $1,040,749. We issued payroll checks in the amount of $3,259,960 and accounts payable checks of $2,445,022 and had due froms of $554,624. Ending the month with $19,523,910 in the general fund checking account.
Okay, that's it. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I'm going to just move forward to public items. We did get a question from some trustees regarding some agenda items tonight. Item number J4, which is RJ Bailey after-school programs. A trustee asked about this and what this was, and
It's no longer J4.
it's no longer
It moved
J4.
into active items for
Page
personnel.
8.
Page 8, sorry, it moved on me.
8,
Thank you. 8 item, is it F10 you were asking about?
F8.
F8.
F8, sorry, F8 on our agenda tonight, after-school program RJ Bailey. This is not for after-school clubs, it is for teaching and teacher staff that will provide work instruction for academic enrichment program. Okay, next we have, could we get a description of the additional work planned for J9, which is now
J3.
J3, thank you, for whoever's finding this that fast.
Page 17.
Page 17, thank you. The description for J3, East Coast Lock and Alarm LLC, is doors and hardware at RJ Bailey Gymnasium. Currently, doors do not lock. In order to rectify this for safety reasons, we need to order new doors and new panic devices. Estimated cost up to $15,000. Other closets and doors need attention. Hardware is being replaced so that in an emergency situation, spaces can be secured. Also, money should be set aside for unforeseen circumstances. Next item, J10, joint bidding for what type of work? Did this move?
Yes, it moved to J4.
J4 now, cooperative bidding programs, Eastern Suffolk BOCES. At the end of the resolution, it states in the last sentence, this resolution solely applies to cross-contract for bidding. This is for the survey for the track and tennis courts. The architect would like to get this done before the snow flies.
I have another question on that. I'm just thinking of the other surveys that need to be done regarding utility location. Can we do anything in advance? And maybe this is for the facilities committee regarding the gas lines for the EPC and Highview, because there's other surveys that need to be, and we need a jumping done,
But because we joined this as a COSA,
then
then we can use them.
Okay, got it. All right.
And this avoids the bidding and RFP process because they've already done it and we're joining them.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you.
Trustee Valen.
So I'm guessing we're asking this now because perhaps Ms. Raymond won't be here later when we normally go through items
Yeah.
for next meeting?
Not at all, we're
Okay.
asking this now because it's public and
Okay,
it was
All
a
right.
few minutes before 8, yeah.
fine, well, okay.
Did you,
I was also gonna ask about this, but wasn't super prepared for this moment, but, so let me waste our time. So piggybacking on that, like, why normally we don't do coasters for RFP, so I was also curious why we're doing it for this one, because when we did like the fire hydrant and all that, I don't think we.
Because if you remember when we did the fire hydrant, how long it took for us to get the bids out, get them in, it took a couple months. This has already been done by the SPOCES, we just have to join the coaster. And you approve it tonight, we'll get it out to them tomorrow, and the company will come. They already have the company. This isn't going out to bid,
'Cause they
they've
did the
already
RFP
done the
themselves.
bid,
Gotcha.
yes.
And then I haven't looked at the supplemental information today, I looked at it last week, so I don't know if today there's a dollar amount for this in here, but it wasn't last week. Can we, since this is for next meeting, can we have
Yeah,
that
I can get
information
you
before
done.
next
I'm
meeting?
pretty sure we have that, but I will get that.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
I move that we adjourn to executive session to discuss collective bargaining negotiations, the employment history of particular persons, personnel matters, and our employee records, and matters deemed confidential by state or federal law, including seeking advice from counsel.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We are now going into executive session, thank you. Okay. Where are we, wise room, right? Okay.
Yes, sorry. Is there a copy in here? You can make a copy. I need to make a copy of this spreadsheet when you get to.
Oh,
Do you have
Copies of what? I gotta go down to the office and
You can take this too.
you got the charger for me?
Yeah, I'm gonna go down, get.
I need 7 of that. Hey, she didn't make me enough.
So who comes first?
Yeah, so
We
have.
got-
Oh, okay.
No, I have.
$2.
You don't care what it is?
We'll pass it around.